For me, this was the first time that I participated, so I found a lot of positive energy.
So you can see people at tables, they don't know each other, and they're starting to share things, and they're finding some commonalities.
There's some very good minds and some very passionate people from all different walks.
We talked a lot about the collaboration, and that is something that I believe in.
I think we have new collaborations and new partnerships. I think we do have a lot of work to do.
It is essential to be a part of a movement or a process that is trying to determine the health of not-for-profit sector.
I think a lot of ideas emerged from this conference.
The roots of the word, colloquium, actually consist of two parts: talking together and to speak, and also, I believe, to listen. This is about the workforce and about employees. It's not about volunteers. We never had a lens of the workforce. This is what we're now actually talking about. Come with a position of strength, and we have to affirm where we've come from and where we need to go. If they could do this in South Africa and bring people together and talk about a future, if they can do this in Colombia, if they can do this in countries in the same approach we're using today, we can do it in Manitoba.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here tonight to bring greetings on behalf of the Winnipeg Foundation, and of course to wish you good success in your deliberations over the next a couple of days. So I think getting a shared vision about where we're headed as we sort of discover what exactly is going on.
So this is just a chart to show you historically what kind of population growth we have.
I feel like we're in a time of discovery. We've got lots to learn and we don't quite know where to put our feet down. And I also know that it's a time of austerity. And whenever you have austerity, you have a lot of risk-taking decisions that have to be made.
Look what's happened to immigration.
What is the workforce going to be is, I think, a big issue for the nonprofit sector. And not only is in terms of the employees that we are hiring, but also the people that we're serving.
Will the sector be able to retain our workers, or will we lose them to other sectors?
Skills development and HR issues, workforce development types of issues within organizations remain at or among the top issues and challenges going forward.
Throughout the next few days, we as thought leaders will have the opportunity to share our past experiences and engage in conversations about the future.
You do have a kit, and I think everybody got the white folder. So inside that is this little booklet, and that's the booklet that's actually got the agenda in it.
The first session that we did, we were actually asking people to start to think about what are the key changes that they think are going to happen in their communities and in their clients, and therefore for their organizations as they look towards the future.
And it becomes this vicious circle.
And then to think, what are the drivers behind those changes? People started to explore those drivers, and they started to map them up in some kind of mind map or visual diagram. And then after that we did a gallery walk, so people went around and they actually looked at each of the different diagrams and mind maps that had come up. Then they returned back to their small groups that they'd been working at to generate those mind maps, and they rethought and looked at what the post-it notes that others had put on their mind map.
Funny that a lot of people that attended this conference actually spoke on behalf of the immigrant, which is fantastic.
We've got to learn, when you've got this many cultures, you've got to be very good at working with difference, right? And identifying commonality.
Canada's changed, and so we have more people from various backgrounds, various culture.
So after they came back and they re-looked at their posters, they pulled out the key drivers that they had at the table. We put those up on cards.
I can see that we are fighting each other. My client, those are my, that's why we are burning out.
And as a social worker, I know that our profession has one of the highest leaving rates. If not the highest leaving rate as a profession. And why? Because people want to do things, they want to help people, and they feel like they aren't.
We talked about a demographic shift. The younger Aboriginal community an increased workforce presence?
I'd like to see our nonprofit sector become a very attractive employment area for young and vibrant minds.
As being a young person coming into the sector, you don't really know what to expect. There's no one's trained you for this.
But in order to do that, we have to have a secure or somewhat secure and competitive work environment.
Personally, for my career path, I'd like to have the opportunity to work with different elements of community. I work with youth right now, and I'd like to work with different parts of the community.
I'm just going to show you this tool. It's called Collective Impact. And what it is it's a way of actually seeing the nonprofit network and the connections across multiple sectors. So the idea was, how could we actually map those relationships so that all the members of the nonprofit sector can use a tool to help them solve some of the challenges you're talking about here today.
So after lunch, we had a panel that came in and actually talked to the group about some of the more detailed research that had been done on workforce.
To long term, the labor supply will contract, and that is likely to complicate some of these issues.
Not including hospitals, colleges, and universities, nationally the nonprofit sector accounts for over 7% of the country's labor force.
We really asked those panelists, including Wilf, who'd been with us on the Tuesday evening, to really look at the drivers that the group had come up with and give us some reactions and reflections to those drivers.
There's a slide in my deck about the generational attitudes. That is critical.
And so the last activity of the day was what we call developing scenarios. So they divided into small groups again, and each group took 2 drivers. And you form a matrix, and then you look at really what is the future in each of those 4 quadrants that the intersection of those 2 drivers make. And they came out with stories about what those futures might look like.
What we have to develop within the sector is to build on this notion of human capital.
It's okay to invest on human force because eventually you're going to reap it back.
I think the retirees should still connect because they still have a lot to offer.
We build a healthy community and healthy people so that they contribute to our workforce.
So we had 2 wonderful story writers who took the scenarios away, and they worked on them overnight, and they came back and presented those to us in the morning.
So if you have a positive work environment and if you have the money, it's like traveling executive class. And when you think of traveling in executive class, you think of low stress. You've got lots of time to get work done, whether that work is coaching or training or planning. You're comfortable. And it's easy to retain staff because who wants to leave executive class?
And we came back and started an appreciative inquiry kind of process.
So actually using the model of strength and looking at strengths and assets rather than deficits and problems.
You all pointed out that we all in this sector have knowledge, passion, skills, strengths, and life experience to contribute to this process.
So people worked in pairs, and they interviewed each other around 4 key questions that were around the strengths of the workforce that exists now and around the kinds of wishes they would have in terms of creating both a workforce for their own organization that would help them move into the future.
Follow up for people that are deal with the change.
Deal with change or whatever.
Absolutely.
More time spent on the person that's looking for a job than the person that's in a job.
So would you say that the diversity of your workforce is a big?
When they had finished those interviews, they paired up with other pairs, and they mined the data, if you like, that they collected in those stories.
Stick to it.
And then we asked them to also look at the wishes that had come up. If we were going to try to get to that wish and accomplish that wish, how could we use some of the strengths to be able to get there?
Your next task is to actually develop a poster. So you're going to grab some of your flip chart paper and develop a poster that describes the future.
But more so, it's about together, right? Like a unified voice, but it's collaboration and we all intersect.
And then they were asked to translate those visions into narrative form. and come up with some aspirational statements about the future. In the morning, our story writers came back again, and overnight they'd again crafted stories that really picked up on all the work that had been done to date.
We began to see each of you as ingredients, which led to recipes, which brought us to food, then to kitchens, and ultimately to restaurants.
There are so many different factors in a restaurant. Everyone has to play a role in a restaurant. There are suppliers who come in. Money's an issue. Treating your workers are an issue. And at the same time, you're satisfying the needs of the neighborhood.
So let's talk a little bit about the stories.
I wanted to listen, and I wanted to help all of us to better understand what it was we were trying to grasp.
Got to have the funder in the kitchen.
Who owns the restaurant?
Yeah, and we maybe need to change that dynamic.
Imagine a block of restaurants that all specialized and worked collectively and in partnership.
Who is the customer? Does pricing vary to meet the ability of customers to pay or according to their needs?
The stories really were useful tools that they can use and take away to their co-workers.
We had the right people at the right time who were engaged in the conversation, helped us build both the dialogue as well as the results that they see going forward.
And there's also a bit of an awakening, I think, taking place.
It's important for the sector now to have a kind of a direction.
I think the ideal would be to see some focus on doing this again.
So overall it was a positive thing, and a lot of good ideas come, and I'm interested and looking forward for the next step, so how we can move forward.